Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Callie.
And I'm Bean.
So today will be our last joint recent reads video. So we'll go over all of our current recent reads.
And then after today, we're going to move on and each person's going to do one separately. Because we are reading so much, these videos are just getting kind of ridiculous. And it's just easier for us just not to do that. So we're going to do individual ones. So I believe I am the first one up, and mine will be up on, I think it's June 11th. And then Callie's right after that, and then Brittany's going to have hers at the end of the month.
Yep.
So.
Alright, so we're going to get started. So so far I have read 6 books.
Six. I can count. 6. I think I was at 5.
So, the first book I actually DNF'd. So, Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. I DNF'd this on page 120. So I DNF'd it because the names were way too ridiculous for me. Which I understand in YA, like, weird names are a necessity.
They are. It's like head banging on the keyboard just makes all the names.
But these ones are ridiculous. Usually I'm really good about, like, figuring out how I personally pronounce it. But I gave up with this book. I was just like, alright, main character girl, main character prince, main character dude. And so it kind of took me away, like, it distanced myself from the characters. And I think that that's probably one of the reasons I DNF'd it. But, so, also, like, I didn't really mesh with the writing style. Like, what was happening was exciting, but the way she was writing it, it made it feel dull.
Unfortunately.
Like, things would happen and, like, they'd be fighting, and all it would say was, they were fighting. And then it ended. And I'm like, what?
That's not
So I got bored. I am going to keep it, because it is pretty. It's a very pretty cover. And a very pretty spine. I might give it another chance. Like, I might see what other people think, if, you know, some books don't get good until halfway through. I didn't quite make it that far.
Yeah, because I'm going to be reading it soon, and I try to give it halfway before I say no.
I usually do.
You do usually. Alright, the first book that I read in this series, I suppose, was True Crime Addict by James Renner. And I give this one a 3.5. It is a nonfiction, and it follows a journalist who becomes obsessed with figuring out the abduction of Maura Murray. And it takes place several years ago, and he did a lot of research, and it basically follows him as he goes around and interviews her friends, family, the police, all of that. But it's kind of weird because it really feels like he doesn't have the right to go do that because he is a journalist. And I really wasn't a fan of his approach to interviewing people. He was not subtle about it. He was not really very sensitive about it. And his obsession went deep. Like, it went to the point where he left his family for months on end so he could go do research on this, which I understand obsession. But that one kind of creeped me out a little bit. But it was an interesting story, and it was well written. You could tell that he was a journalist, and he knew how to write. So overall, I gave it 3.5.
Next, I read the entire Caraval series. I decided to wait until finale came out to just binge the whole series. So I will be giving each of them an individual review. So, naturally, Caraval by Stephanie Garber, book 1. I loved this book. Like, all of these books were just so imaginative and just so different. I really loved, there was like the huge mystery aspect. I had no idea what was going to happen. And usually I'm pretty good at guessing what's going to happen. No. And it was just, no. I tried and failed. But it was just so enticing from page 1. The characters were a little annoying, especially our main character, Scarlett, in this one. But I have to keep reminding myself that she is 17. 17-year-olds are annoying.
They are.
But she had a lot of character development. So I gave this one 4 stars. So book 2 being Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This one we get Tella's point of view, which I thought was really cool. And I thought that it was just going to be a carbon copy of Caraval, but in Tella's point of view with a different Caraval. No. No. No, sir. But this, Stephanie Garber was able to add even more mystical elements and continue to keep me enticed. I fell even more in love with these characters in this book. So I gave this one a 4.5. And last but not least, I read Finale by Stephanie Garber, the final book in the Caraval trilogy. And this one we get both Scarlett and Tella's point of views, which I really thought was a nice way to kind of finish off the series. Since we got one whole book with Scarlett, one whole book with Tella, and now we get both to kind of wrap up the series. And there were still so many twists and turns I wasn't ready for. Half of my, notes for this book were like, what the fuck? What? What? That's half of my notes. So, really enjoyed this. I thought this was a really solid ending to this world. She left it open enough to maybe do, a novella, an afterward novella. But either way, I'm happy with how it ended, which is really, hard to find. Where I'm just, just happy with how it ended.
Especially in a YA trilogy.
Oh, yeah, especially in a YA trilogy.
That's hard to find something that you just like the ending.
Yeah, because this one, I think why I liked it so much is it made sense for the characters.
Oh, there you go.
It wasn't just, I say won't go into spoilers, but it wasn't that, happy-go-lucky ending. Mm-hmm. But the ending still made me happy because it made sense for the characters' personalities and their roles in the book.
Oh, okay.
Which is what I really liked.
The next two books that I read were Agatha Christie books. This first one was 3-Act Tragedy, and it's the 11th book in the Hercule Poirot series. I did give this one 5 stars, and it's probably one of my favorite books in the series so far. It was written about a playwright, and so it was written kind of as a play. It was written in 3 acts. The first act is when the murder happened. The second act is while they're trying to figure out what happens. And the third act is solving it. And so that was really quite cool. And I love that Agatha Christie played with the different types of writing, different ways of writing a story. Because each of her books is different. This one was a lot of fun. It was tricky and I didn't figure out what was going on, which is very usual. Until right before the murder was revealed, and then I was like, ooh, and I got really excited because I figured it out. This one also, Hercule Poirot, who is our Belgian detective in this series, he wasn't in the majority of this book. He more acted like a guide for the characters. So he came in, and he's this famous detective who's now retired. And he comes in and he kind of guides the characters. They're like, well, we want to solve this. And he's like, okay, sounds good. You guys can solve this. I'll just kind of be like, well, what if you did this? And they're like, oh, we should go do this, this, and this. And he's like, there you go. Actually, I really enjoyed this one. And I don't know if I'd read it again because it is a mystery. So
mysteries are hard to read a second time.
They are. But if I were to, I would read these ones again. It was a lot of fun. The next one I read was Death in the Clouds by Agatha Christie, and this one was the 12th book in the Hercule Poirot series. I loved this one. So for those of you who may have seen this cover before, yes, it was in Doctor Who.
It's a little Easter egg for ya.
But this was a really fun mystery. This one, yes, there was a murder, but I still think it was fun. I did give this one 5 out of 5, and this one takes place on an airplane, and it turns out that Hercule Poirot, he gets airsick. So it's a little funny because usually he's like, oh, I observed all of this, and this time he's like, no, I was curled up in a blanket trying to sleep because I could not do that. And it was interesting. The book kept me engaged the whole time, and kind of one of the cool things about lots of these books by Agatha Christie is that she always adds a female character who has a very strong opinion. She adds a female to the cast who is a very strong-willed female who has a solid opinion, and it's cool because Poirot respects her for it and makes the comment several times where he's like, well, women have a different opinion than men. They see things differently, and he's like, this is good. We like this. And it's not demeaning to females, so it's kind of refreshing. Dare I say that a book from the 1930s is refreshing. What's going on?
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I really liked these. I highly recommend this series for anyone who loves mysteries and slight sarcasm and sass.
So, because our, I guess, May book of the month that we're all reading together is Illuminae. I read Illuminae because I have no self-control and couldn't keep to our schedule. I devoured this book.
I don't think any of us kept to the schedule.
Brittany did.
Oh, did she really?
She did. She read 150 pages
You go,
a day.
Brittany. I did not.
I read this in a day. So I read
Okay.
Illuminae. And I will give you more of my thoughts in our spoilery book talk. But I gave this book 5 stars. And I love it so much.
She has all of the feelings.
I have a lot of feelings about this book. So many feelings.
She was very excited, and when I started reading it, she's like, you need to text me all the time. And I'm like, okay.
She understood why.
I did it. Alright, the next book that I read was The Winter Sister by Megan Collins. I give this one a 2.5. It was forgettable. It was a thriller where the main character, she leaves home because she has a disagreement with her mother, and then they don't talk for 7 years, and then mom gets sick, so she goes home. Honestly, I felt like I had read this book before. Her younger sister was murdered when she was about 8 years old, and it's all about the secrets in this small town, and I was underwhelmed. There were actually 2 twists in this book, really, and the first one I saw coming from a mile away, and then the second one I actually didn't, which was slightly refreshing, and that's what gave it a 2.5. But I did make it through the whole thing.
So, naturally, after reading Illuminae, and I owned the entire series, I read Gemina. Just as quickly. Which I don't have with me right now, because someone left it at their house.
Sorry.
So, I gave Gemina another 5 stars. I just devoured this book. It was a little bit slower than Illuminae, in my opinion. But by, like, a hair. Because we're following 2 different characters, and we're not following Katie and Ezra anymore. We're following Hannah, Nick, and Jackson. So you have to spend, it's almost kind of like a first book again, where you're getting to know these characters. So, like, you already know the world, but you don't know these characters. So it was, like, a little bit in that aspect slow, but once I got to know the characters, I love Hannah and Nick and Jackson.
The last book that I read was No Country for Old Gnomes by Delilah S. Dawson and Kevin Hearne. This is a sequel. This is the second book in the Tales of Pell series, and there will be a third one, and it's called The Bearded Princess, so I will be reading it, partially because of the title. I gave this book a 3.5. I really enjoyed it. It is a satire, basically. It is, I would describe it as Monty Python meets The Princess Bride, so if those two had a fantasy love child, that is this series, and it's great. Unfortunately, this one was a bit slow moving for my taste, and it did take me quite a while to read it. That's also partially because I read it on my phone, and whenever I read a book on my phone, it takes me a while. But this was a great book. I highly recommend this series, but you do have to go in knowing that it's humor. It is not meant to be taken seriously. This book we follow gnomes, halflings, a griffin, a troll who just wants to make everybody happy. He's so cute. He's such a little cinnamon roll. But then when he gets angry, his stick turns all sharp and then he can attack things.
Nice.
It's crazy. And a sheep person. She's like half sheep, half person. And when you read her lines, they add like the ba noise to it. So like all of her A's are super long and it's kind of, it's just funny. So I do recommend this book. You don't have to read the first one, but it does help because we do also follow some of the characters from the first book.
So, like we mentioned, this is our last joint recent reads. We will start doing individual ones, so they're not totally going away. We read too much.
We do. We read a lot, and I think we surprised ourselves with how much we read.
Yeah, so there will be an individual one for all 3 of us. So look forward to that starting in June. Also, we now post 3 times a week. We now post on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays because we have way too much content.
We like books.
We like to read.
We like to talk about reading. And that's the whole reason that we joined BookTube, was to have this community of people to talk to about reading.
Yeah, so look forward to seeing our Illuminate book talk on June 4th. We'll be at Brittany's house doing kind of like a roundtable discussion. The first part will be spoiler free, and we will put a disclaimer as to when the spoilers begin.
So you won't be spoiled.
So you won't
unless you really want to, and then just go read the book.
Then at that point, read the book. Yeah,
it's just easier.
So thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe.
Feel free to hit the little bell icon if you want to be notified whenever we post videos. Also below we have linked all of our personal Instagrams and then also our channel Instagram as well as my blog. And you can find us all on Goodreads as well.
Yep.
So if you want to keep up with how much we're reading
in real time. Thanks for watching and we will see you next time.
Bye!